The kiss was supposed to be a joke, a dare tossed into the air with laughter and lights, but when her lips touched his in front of the whole wedding hall, time froze, and by the time it moved again, everyone had already decided they were the next couple to marry. In that stunned silence, Aisha pulled back, heart thundering, while murmurs and gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave she couldn't outrun. Hamza, the groom's older cousin and the man she'd just kissed, stared at her with unreadable eyes, his jaw tense but steady. Then, before she could think, he slipped his hand into hers and turned to face the hall with a calm she didn't feel. "I guess they all know now," he said softly, loud enough for people nearby to hear, and smiled as if this had been planned all along. The hall erupted in cheers and whistles, phones came out, and someone yelled that now a new wedding was on the way. Aisha felt the ground vanish beneath her feet as her world tilted, her impulsive act turning into a promise she never meant to make. It had started as nothing more than annoyance, a slow burn that had built up over months of snide comments and teasing from Hamza. He had always been that one cousin in the family gatherings who thought he was above everyone, with his foreign degree, his calm confidence, and his maddening smirk that always seemed to say he knew more than he let on. Aisha, fiercely independent and tired of being told she was too emotional, had clashed with him again and again, their arguments secretly watched by amused relatives who whispered that there was chemistry. At her best friend Sana's wedding that night, Hamza had pushed one button too many, joking loudly that Aisha would never find someone patient enough to handle her temper. Her pride had flared, and in the chaos of dole, laughter, and cameras, a cousin dared her to prove she wasn't afraid of anything. "Kiss him, then," someone shouted, half joking, half drunk on wedding energy. Aisha, hurt and reckless, decided she would shut them all up in one bold, stupid move. When she leaned forward and kissed him, she expected him to jump away, to mock her, to add this moment to his list of reasons why she was too much. But instead, Hamza froze, then responded with surprising gentleness, a stillness in him that made the noise around them blur. It wasn't a long kiss, wasn't dramatic or perfect, but it was real enough that the hall went quiet for a beat, and that was all it took. Sana's mother gasped, Sana's father choked on his drink, and someone in the back clapped, breaking the silence into 1,000 shards of noise and gossip. "Mashallah, mashallah, Bas, Abi Inkibari," an aunt declared, laughing as if she had been waiting for this twist all along. Aisha tried to pull away, to explain, to say it was just a dare, a joke gone too far, but the crowd had already made its decision. Expectations formed like a cage around her, shining and heavy. In the car park later, the cold air hit her face, but did nothing to quiet her racing thoughts. She paced in the shadows between parked cars, her glittery dupatta dragging dangerously close to puddles, while Hamza leaned casually against his car, as if his entire life hadn't just shifted. "Say something," she demanded, hugging herself tightly, her lipstick smudged and her dignity dangling by a thread. "What do you want me to say?" he replied, sounding far too calm, though his fingers tightened slightly around his car keys. "That it was a joke," she snapped. "That we'll tell them it meant nothing, that I was stupid and angry and," he cut her off gently. "Do you really want that to be the story? You humiliated me, rejecting you in front of everyone, your parents' faces burning with shame." His words hit harder than she expected, making her anger stumble. "But this wasn't real," she whispered, suddenly small. "It could be," he said quietly, surprising them both. That night, Aisha lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of the kiss and every word Hamza had said afterward. Her parents had been quiet on the drive home, too quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavier than words. Her mother avoided eye contact, fiddling with her bangles, while her father drove with stiff shoulders, clearing his throat every few minutes, but saying nothing. When they reached home and finally spoke, their voices were gentle but exhausted, as if the world had demanded too much of them in a single evening. "Aisha," her father began, folding his hands, "you know how people talk. You know how reputations work here." Her mother added, eyes glistening, "They all saw you, Beta. They will not see it as a joke. They will say you are already committed. Aisha wanted to scream that her life wasn't a rumor to manage, that her future couldn't be decided by 10 seconds of impulsive madness, but the fear in her parents' eyes tightened around her chest like a rope. The next day, Hamza came to their house with his parents, uninvited but expected, like a storm the sky had been warning about. Aisha sat in her room listening as the elders exchanged polite greetings downstairs, the clink of teacups somehow louder than the conversation. Her cousin messaged her non-stop with laughing emojis and voice notes of excited aunties talking about the new couple. The humiliation made her cheeks burn, but under the shame was something else, confusion, curiosity, a flicker of something she didn't want to name. Her mother knocked gently and called her down. When Aisha entered the living room, all eyes turned to her, and she felt like a defendant walking into court. Hamza stood when he saw her, his usual teasing smirk nowhere to be found, replaced by a seriousness that made her heartbeat stumble. "I'm here to do the right thing," he told her parents. "I want to marry Aisha, if she agrees." The words landed like a stone in her chest, sending ripples of panic and disbelief. "What are you doing?" she hissed when they were given a moment alone in the courtyard, away from the careful eyes of the elders. "You don't even like me. You've made that very clear." Hamza sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I never said I didn't like you," he replied quietly. "I said you were stubborn. And loud. And reckless." "Wow, that makes it so much better," she shot back, crossing her arms. He half smiled, then grew serious again. "Look, Aisha. They already think there's something between us. People saw. Things will be said. I can walk away, if that's what you want, but you know what it will do to you more than to me." She hated that he was right. She hated that in their world, the girl always carried the heavier weight of a mistake. But she hated even more that a tiny part of her didn't want him to walk away. The days that followed were a whirlwind of family meetings, hushed discussions, and endless cups of chai. Aisha felt like an object being passed around the room in people's words, something to be discussed, analyzed, and measured against culture, honor, and log kia kahen gay. Her younger brother tried to make her laugh, calling the whole thing Netflix-level drama, but even his jokes couldn't lift the tension completely. Hamza, to her annoyance, kept showing up, bringing his parents, then coming alone, then calling her father to assure him that his intentions were pure and serious. Aisha watched all of this with wary eyes, trying to decide whether he was truly sincere, or simply playing hero to fix a mess they'd both created. At night, she caught herself remembering the softness in his eyes when he'd said, it could be real, and she would get angry at herself for even considering it. One evening, when the house was quieter and the initial chaos had settled into something more painfully stable, Aisha found herself on the rooftop, seeking the comfort of the night sky. The city lights flickered in the distance like scattered thoughts, and the cool breeze tried to soothe her restless mind. She heard footsteps and turned to see Hamza standing there, holding 2 cups of chai as if he'd known she would be there. "You're getting good at invading my peace," she muttered, but she didn't tell him to leave. He handed her a cup and stood beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly, staring at the sky instead of her. She exhaled slowly. "The kiss? Yes. The chaos? Absolutely. The truth it exposed? I don't know yet." He nodded, as if that was the most honest answer he'd expected from her. "Why aren't you backing down?" she asked after a moment, her voice softer, more vulnerable than she intended. "You could just tell everyone it was nothing," she continued. "People will talk for a while, then find new gossip." Hamza smiled sadly. "They might forget the story, but they won't forget the picture," he said. "Screenshots, videos, wedding cameras, this is not the kind of thing our society lets go of easily." She knew he was right. Already, clips from the wedding had been shared in family groups. The kiss slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed like some scandalous film scene. "But there's more," he added softly.